It was the height of summer, July 1916, on New Jersey's famous shoreline. Families flocked to the beaches to escape the city heat. They spread blankets on golden sand, built sand castles, and laughed as children chased flying kites. Ice cream. Vendors strolled by, their bells chiming in the hot air. But beneath these warm, sparkling waves lurked something no one expected. That morning, a young man named Charles Van Sant, just 25 years old, waded into the water near Beach Haven. The tide was mild, the sun fierce. Charles loved the ocean's cool touch against his skin. He waded deeper, smiling as the waves curled around his waist. Suddenly, a dark shape sliced through the water toward him. Witnesses on the beach gasped as the shark struck. In a heartbeat, its jagged jaws clamped onto Charles's left leg, dragging him beneath the surface. Shouts rang out. Children screamed. Lifeguards sprinted across the sand and dove in, fighting the shark with everything they had, poles, fins, even their bare hands. They managed to pry Charles free and drag him to shore. But by then, he had lost too much blood. Despite frantic attempts to save him, he slipped away, leaving behind broken flip-flops and a stain of red in the sea. 5 days later, the beaches were quieter. Nervously, swimmers eyed the turning tide. Parents held children close. But despite the fear, people returned to the water. They needed relief from the summer heat. On July 6th, near Spring Lake, a boy named Lester Stillwell, just 12 years old, stepped into the shallow surf. He laughed as he splashed, his eyes bright under the sun. Within seconds, the shark was upon him again. Lester's friends watched in horror as he vanished beneath the waves. One friend, 14-year-old Stanley, Fisher, didn't hesitate. He dove in to pull Lester out, but the shark turned on Stanley, tearing into his leg. Stanley fought back, punching and kicking until the shark released him. Gasping for air, Stanley broke free and dragged himself to shore with help from bystanders. Lester, however, had been lost. His body was never recovered. Panic gripped the shore from Spring Lake down to Springwood Beach. Daytime traffic slowed to a crawl as beaches emptied. Newspapers called it a reign of terror. Fishermen and thrill-seekers formed armed patrols. Some carried rifles, others carried harpoons. 2 days later, a local fisherman named Joseph Dunn caught sight of a massive shark tangled in his nets. It measured over 14 feet long, an enormous great white. Believing this to be the killer, he shot it. When the body washed ashore, townsfolk gathered to inspect the beast. Some cheered, others whispered that the danger was finally over. They were wrong. On July 12th, 12 days after the first attack, and miles from the ocean, in a muddy inlet called Matawan Creek, another swimmer disappeared. Matawan Creek twisted. Inland, its water murky and still, surrounded by thick reeds. It was a spot locals used for cooling off on sweltering days. No one expected a shark there. But around 4 p.m., 12-year-old Watson Stanley Fisher, no relation to the earlier survivor, waded in with friends. The water reached his chest. He laughed, splashing his friends. Then a scream. A dark fin cut through the brown water. The shark lunged, its teeth bared. In one swift motion, it clamped onto Watson's legs, dragging him under. His friends scrambled, back to shore, too terrified to help. By the time adults reached him, it was too late. His body was pulled from the creek. There were deep gouges on his legs, and his blood had turned the creek a dark red. Watson became the fourth and final victim. In less than 2 weeks, a shark had killed 4 people and wounded 1 more, on a beach, in a town pond, and finally, far from the ocean's edge. It was the first time in modern history that a shark attack spree of this sort had happened. The attacks shattered Americans' faith in the safety of their seaside vacations. Town councils held emergency meetings. Beaches were closed, lifeguards were armed, and shark nets were hung out like prison bars across the surf. Scientists and military officers were called in to hunt down the marauder. Some tried to explain why the shark struck so many times. Was it wounded and desperate? Did it mistake humans for seals? Or was it simply a rogue predator with an unquenchable taste for blood? Decades later, we still debate the answers. But what we know for sure is this: the summer of 1916 remains one of the darkest chapters in the history of summer fun. Today, beaches are fitted with sonar nets, warning systems, and strict swim zone rules. Surfers check apps before paddling out. Lifeguards carry radios and first aid kits. All of this grew out of the lessons learned that July. Story 2. The Tate LaBianca Murders, August 1969. August 1969. Hollywood's long summer days were winding down. Movie studios rolled out big premieres. Celebrities strolled red carpets. The air smelled of sunshine and optimism. At 150 Cielo Drive, actress Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski, had just moved in. Sharon was 8 months pregnant. She spent the afternoon decorating the nursery, laughing with friends as they hung pastel baby clothes on a clothesline. Their rented home looked like a dream. White walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, a swimming pool out back. Everything felt bright and safe. That night, August 8th, friends came over. Music played softly. They toasted to new beginnings. Sharon, radiant in a summery dress, floated through rooms, hosting and joking with everyone. As the sun dipped below the hills, they lit candles and turned on fairy lights. Around 11 p.m., the front door rattled. When it didn't open, the intruders struck a side window. Glass shattered. The party stopped. Then knives flashed in candlelight. The visitors were not guests. They were killers. Inside, panic erupted. Friends ran for phones. One woman rushed toward the kitchen only to be met with a hammer blow. Another tried to hide in a closet. She never made it. Sharon, in her bedroom on the second floor, heard the screams. She tried to lock her door. It was too late. The door burst open. In minutes, 5 people lay dead. Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, Jay Sebring, and Stephen Parent. The killers used Sharon's blood to write cryptic words on the walls, words meant to terrorize and confuse. Then they slipped away into the night, leaving behind a scene of unspeakable horror. The next morning, neighbors saw police cars flooding the street. Yellow tape fluttered. Reporters crowded the gate. Hollywood woke to a nightmare. How could such violence erupt in the middle of a glamorous summer? Just 10 miles away, on August 9th, another horror unfolded. Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, a middle-class couple, arrived home after dinner. The house was quiet. Inside, under dim lights, a different group of killers waited. Some of the same faces from the night before, still following orders from cult leader Charles Manson. They forced the LaBiancas to sit at the kitchen table. They drank their wine. They ate their food. They carved words in their refrigerator door with a knife. Then the violence began. Rosemary tried to shield Leno. He fought back, but the killers were relentless. In the brutal melee, both Leno and Rosemary were stabbed dozens of times. When it was over, the walls were splattered with blood. The words war and pig were written in red across the walls and the bodies. Then the killers vanished again, leaving the home sealed in shock. The nation watched in horror. What had once seemed like a safe, sun-soaked summer became a time of fear. People installed locks on gates. They double-checked their doors at night. Children in Los Angeles no longer played freely in yards after dark. The Manson family's rampage didn't stop there. They went on to commit more crimes that fall. But it was those 2 summer nights in August '69 that cracked open the daisy-chain dream of peace and love. Sharon Tate's bright smile and growing baby bump became an icon of lost innocence. Today, 150 Cielo Drive is gone. A new home stands, there hidden behind high walls. Few know the stories of that sunny August night, yet the horror still echoes in true crime shows and books. Story 3. The Green River Killer's First Victims. Summer 1982. It was summer 1982. In King County, Washington, the Green River meandered through dense woods and quiet suburbs. Anglers cast lines at sunrise. Couples picnicked on grassy banks. Joggers ran the river trail with headphones on. On July 15th, two hunters trekking through the forest spotted something strange near the water's edge. Lying face down in the reeds was a young woman. Her clothes were simple, jeans and a bright blouse, no wallet, no ID. Nothing to say who she was or how she died. Sheriff's deputies arrived. They wrapped her body and loaded it into a truck. They scoured the surrounding woods but found no clues, just green leaves and the soft ripple of river water. Less than a week later, on July 19th, another body appeared, this time in a shallow bend of the river, not far from the first. Again, a young woman. Again, no identification. But police noticed the bodies shared striking similarities. The same light-colored blouse, the same jeans, the same way their hands were tied behind their backs. Fear spread through the county like wildfire. Parents pulled their children closer. Women stopped jogging alone. Fishermen stayed near populated areas. The river that once offered peace now felt like a trap. By early August, 3 more bodies had been found, 11 in total by November. Each victim seemed carefully chosen and carefully discarded. The killer left no fingerprints, no witnesses. Only the river and the forest knew his secret. However, the detectives formed a special task force. They interviewed suspects, reviewed tips from the public, and even set up roadblocks on nearby highways. But every lead went cold. The killer was as elusive as the mist rising from the water at dawn. The locals named him the Green River Killer. Posters showing the 11 faces appeared on every bulletin board. Young women in party dresses, some with hopeful smiles, all now lost. Their families waited, tormented by not knowing what happened. Years passed. In the early 1990s, detectives finally had a breakthrough. Fibers from a victim's blouse matched fibers found in the home of Gary Ridgway, a truck painter, who worked near the river. But without DNA proof, they couldn't charge him. Then in 2001, DNA technology had advanced enough to test old evidence. The results were undeniable. Gary Ridgway was the Green River Killer. He confessed to 49 murders and hinted at more, but the motives behind the murders were never disclosed. But the fear of that summer never really left. The first 11 victims, taken in July and August 1982, remind us that evil can hide behind the most peaceful scenes, that a gentle riverbank can become a killer's stage. Today, the Green River flows on. Fishermen cast lines again. Couples picnic in sunlit clearings. The forest seems peaceful once more, but every time someone glances at the water, they remember the wrong turn that led so many young women to a dark fate. If you found these tales chilling, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more real-life horror you won't see coming. Click the bell so you never miss an upload, and share in the comments below which story sent the biggest shiver down your spine. Got a summer horror you think we should cover next? Let us know. We read every suggestion. Thanks for watching. Until next time, don't watch alone.